Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature successful business leaders, authors, top law firms, green energy companies, and more. Today, we have another great episode in our IT Manager series with the Director of IT for One Mesa, Sarfraz Shaikh. Sarfraz, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. Do you know if a hacker's in your system? Most people and most companies don't until it's too late and the hacker's already done damage. A hacker's job is to bypass your security. So companies need a way of knowing when someone's gotten past their security. That's where Cyberlink's intrusion detection comes in. With our 24/7 Security Operations Center, we use a combination of AI and cybersecurity technicians to see when a hacker successfully bypassed your security. So if a bad guy gets past your security, we'll know right away and be able to kick them out. Find out more at cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. And now back to our show. Sarfraz, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about Mesa and your role there as Director of IT?
Yes, you bet. So Mesa, or One Mesa, as we interchangeably use both those company names. We play in the oil and gas industries. Underneath Mesa, we have Mesa Products, which is the manufacturing arm of the company. We manufacture custom ground bed designs that go underground to protect assets. And assets for us are underground pipelines, above ground storage tanks, things of those nature. Then Mesa also owns Mesa Services, which is an engineering, technical services, and heavy construction division. And lastly, we have Bass Engineering, which is a construction and installation wing of Mesa. As the director of IT at Mesa, my responsibilities span hardware, software, cybersecurity. OT is a big piece of it with our manufacturing systems, and kind of the overall business IT alignment, vendor partnerships, and more.
Yeah, so not a lot on your plate then. Yeah.
Absolutely, never a dull moment.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, you know what? A lot of times we like to go back to kind of the company founding, and you've been there with the company for a long time. I don't think quite the founding, but it's kind of fun to see how these businesses progress and how individuals progress with them. And for you, I think what's it been? Has it been 14 years? Is that
14 years? Yes.
14 years.
Running.
And you didn't start in IT either, did you?
No. So at Mesa, I started off in the marketing and communications division. I have education in IT, but at that time when I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, that's where the Mesa corporate headquarters are. They were looking for somebody in communications and marketing, and I had a bachelor's back in the day, so that's where I started. It was a small organization, and you wear a lot of hats in these kind of situations. So that's when with my IT education, I was kind of slowly bleeding into it and assisting. They did not have a very formal org structure, if you will. But as we continued to grow from a small to a mid-sized organization, we quickly understood that, hey, we need more structure. And that's where I think they realized, hey, Froz might be a good fit. He understands the IT, the roadmap, and the terminology. We are notorious for acronyms, right? In IT. So I was able to speak the speak and be able to talk with vendors. So quickly that hat became a full-time hat. And now we have a very structured department, be it IT. We have a marketing communications department, social media. Yeah, it has been fun. And one, I want to kind of highlight this about Mesa is the Mesa Products arm is ISO 9001 2015 certified. So there's a lot of process control documents, audits that are happening. And on the organization as a whole, we are a 3-time Malcolm Baldrige national quality award winning organization. So the Baldrige program is a U.S. Department of Commerce initiative administered by NIST. And part of that the program is it gives you a framework on not just an IT or anything as such. It's a very holistic framework, if you will. From strategic planning to how do you prepare your leadership, succession planning, how do you create a great place to work? What is your focus around customer retention? And all of that is great in theory, right? But the Baldrige program kind of brings it all together with metrics, with measurement. If you say you're doing this and if you're running this organization, show me the benefits, show me the value, show me the ROI, right? So it kind of brings it all together and you're held accountable. Now, this program is pretty intensive. Companies apply for it, and once you get accepted, they send auditors to assess your application. So in this 60-page application, you've got to describe your entire story around those categories. And then they send in the auditors. They are on site. They are based on the company. If it's a health company, they'll send you to hospitals, talk to patients, things like that. Now we are manufacturing field operations. So yeah, they come on site. They talk to the employees, vendors if needed, and vet the information that we put in the application that we strongly support. So it's not just on paper. They want to ensure that you are walking the walk. So as a company, I've been through two of these. We've won it 3 times. I've been being a part of the 2 applications and reviews and audits and the awards stuff. So it's been great, and that's kind of the gist, which is, hey, I was started off in marketing, but there's always growth. There's always you learn new things, and that sort of is embedded in our DNA, if you will.
I love that. So I think for a lot of people looking at this from, wanting to get into IT, and there's a lot of that now, and people thinking, well, what certification should I get? What degree should I get? I think it's great to hear these stories of, like yours. And just so I'm clear, that you started in marketing, and then as the company grew and was like, hey, we need an IT department, did you then become the kind of the de facto IT department? You went from de facto IT department to the official IT department and kind of grew with that, or how did that work?
Yes, yes. So we had a few folks in the IT department, but there was no structure. It was like the Wild West. Yeah, we are developing this app and it's rolling out. So I do have a master's and MBA with MIS, Information Systems. So the as I was developing the marketing program for the company, as we're growing 3 business units. Right. So when the leadership saw that, hey, he's got a good handle on that, and we need a little bit of structure on this side, and he has the education, the tools, he understands the language. IT folks, Matt, to be honest, and this is a very broad stroke, but we are the folks that sometimes we shut the door and we put on that hoodie and we are deep in our work. We have it's difficult to find an IT, and this might be very specific to developers, um, but we are the folks that kind of have minimalist approach when it comes to communication. Yeah, I get it. Let me do this thing and roll it out. It's ready. So it was quite a challenge for a small company to mid-size, like, hey, this thing is done. I did not know it was done. When was it done? So, so they saw the leadership, the board thought that, hey, Fraz might be the right person because he's in communications. He understands the IT stuff. He has the education. And I slowly, took over the management of it and then kind of grew internally to kind of run the networks and the software, hardware, the business, cyber, the whole thing. Yeah, it's been an
I mean,
incredible journey.
it almost seems more like I don't even know if it seems, but it's much more like you were the right guy for that job, and you kind of got sidetracked with marketing for a bit until that job opened up in the same company. It's like you were really kind of you had the degree for it, you had the know-how, and you were kind of an ideal candidate for that job. You just had to wait for it to open up in the company, and you did that in the marketing department.
Appreciate that. Yeah, being at the right place at the right time, I guess, the opportunities. So yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, it's fun to see companies grow like that too. I mean, a lot of times people move in, at the kind of CIO level, and it's all just kind of this strategic management at that point, and they don't kind of get to see the company grow from, like you have kind of the from the ground up. Because when you're a small company, every dollar counts, every person makes a real difference to the company. How it's structured matters, considerably more than when you're large, and there's just more room for error, more room for fluff, if you will. Each person becomes less kind of integral to the success of the company the larger it is. I mean, one person doesn't stop a 50,000 employee company, no matter how important they are, what position they're really in, except for maybe at the very head. Yeah, right. So, getting to be that guy who early on came up and kind of grew there. I think that's pretty great for everybody involved.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you hit it right there, especially, mid-sized organizations. Uh, Sometimes whenever I'm speaking with peers in the group and they always ask, hey, what do you enjoy about this? Because IT, just in general, be it, overseeing networking and cyber, if you will, it's busy. There's like you said, initially I also mentioned never a dull moment, right? How do you have that chaos under control? How do you manage your sanity? And one of the things that has always kind of driven me is that satisfaction that your effort, and this is very true for small and mid-sized markets, when whatever you're doing, you see the end results, you see the impact. It could be a very simple deployment, maybe like password management tool, or changing the printing environment from hundreds of printers to community printers, and you see all these strategic initiatives that you bring to the table, see it in action, and then some are failures. You take a step back and you learn from it. Yeah, it was great technology, but our methodology of deployment was very not well thought out. And then the next time you go and you do something and it's successful, and you get pat on the shoulder. So it's just very appreciative and kind of fulfilling, if you will. Yeah, I like that part that we're making immediate difference, and you get to see that in action.
Yeah, I mean, when we started, I started Cyberlinks about 14 years ago. How about that?
Mm,
And it was fun because we started with very small companies as well. We started in a small town in Lexington, Virginia, and you made such a big impact with these small businesses, where you're helping them with their IT and their cybersecurity, and everything really made a huge impact. And that's really rewarding. So, working with small and mid-sized companies, I find it really rewarding, and same with our techs and everybody. It's so much more rewarding because it actually matters, right? It matters to the company, the individual. It's, first of all, never the same day twice, but you're 100% right. It is so much more rewarding because you see that immediate impact of your efforts in IT, to say, oh, you've solved their problem, you've made things better, the company's better, you're doing, and everybody's happy. Versus some huge company with hundreds of thousands of employees. You'll never meet that person. You just help them out. Okay, that's good. You solved the problem, but it's not quite the same as helping, Jimmy or Jane or whomever that you've known forever, and they're struggling with something, and you help them with that problem, and now it's better, right? Or knowing that you saved the company from this cyber threat, and it's like, that's great. This was about to be a disaster. We were about to have a horrible year, but now it's
right.
fantastic. I mean, so those things I'm right there with you. I think that part of small and medium business is just so rewarding.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So let me ask you. So you've actually we were talking just before the show, and you had this really cool, I guess, approach to strategy. And I'd love for you to share it with the audience here.
Yeah. So being, sort of the discipline of Malcolm Baldrige and ISO, we focus a lot of effort. We put in a lot of time and money in planning, and especially with our growth, right, from a small to mid-sized business, and now three unique business units, right? We've got Mesa Products, headquartered in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We've got Mesa Services, headquartered in Clare, Michigan. And then we've got Bass Engineering, headquartered in Longview, Texas. And then you've got this One Mesa umbrella. So there is growth. And around growth, you've got to have a strategy around it. You've got to be agile. And when I say agile, Matt, I want to kind of emphasize, I'm not talking about the agile methodology, but it kind of weaves itself through this. But agility, sort of in action, how do you take technology? And because technology touches every department, be it HR, finance, accounting, safety for us, right? IT, of course. So we have sort of our fingers in the pot, if you will, across the entire organization. And for us to be agile and adapt to changing environments, it is very important, because if not, then the company, you kind of write yourself out of that competition, if you will. So I want to kind of, expand a little bit further. So when we look at our current digital landscape, right, evolution is happening at breakneck speed, right? Every day you see new technologies emerge, reshaping industries, redefining user experiences, right? At the recent Apple event, the Glow Time event, when they had maybe a month ago, um, they're releasing a phone every single year. And I always scratch my head. What else could they add in there, right?
Yeah.
What could be better? Is it a new color, maybe? Is it a faster processor? The common things that you get. Better camera, it's 50 megapixels now, right? But then as I'm going through this, kind of, it caught my eye was these features of Apple Intelligence, the AI piece. And I was like, okay, let's read this. And there was a thing like visual intelligence features, like, hey, I'm walking on the street, I see, let's say, a dog, right? Take a picture of the dog, and I can immediately ask, hey, what breed is this dog, or something like that, which it's a cool feature. It helps you right there, instant gratification, the kind of environment the consumers we are these days. Generative emojis, that was a cool one. Like usually you've got a set of established emojis. Now you can actually type in how I feel, right? And then that generates that emotion and creates an emoji. So evolution is happening, AI especially. Rise in digital interactions. The pandemic, I would say, right? COVID kind of really reset the work environment, if you will, making remote work, digital interactions the norm. These days, in fact, I'll share this with you. We've been trying to find somebody in our marketing team um, to come help us with graphic design and social media, and there's some interaction that happens on site, and we're having a tough time finding. We have all the talent, but everybody wants to be remote, right? So that's kind of the new norm. Um, Social media, telehealth, it's just that rise in digital interactions, and then data. Uh, Data is that new oil, if you will. With more data comes challenges of storage, analysis, protecting it, right? That's kind of all cyber there. Um, what else is changing? Man, increasing cyber threats. Uh, there's not a single day that you don't get, I don't get an email that has a list of 4 or 5 different companies that were compromised. Like you said in your opening statement, if you probably have been compromised. You just either know about it or you didn't know about it. That's kind of the inside joke that IT cyber folks talk about. 2024, it looks like it's going to set up, new records in when it comes to ransomware. Just the big ones that we hear, right? There are so many that we don't hear because nobody shares. There are smaller companies, privately held. Uh, but that national public data, 2.7 billion records were compromised. What was the other big one? Ticketmaster, I think, was another big one, like millions, over 500 million records were compromised. Not to mention healthcare. I know just here in Oklahoma, there have been several hospitals that are impacted, and you see that on everyday folks, how these kind of things impact your day to day, be it your doctor's visit or any procedure that's being scheduled, and just creates so much chaos. And lastly, when I'm talking about defining that landscape, is regulatory challenges, right? As this digital landscape is changing, compliance, social media, all of that, the federal government or countries, the GDPR over in Europe, California Consumer Privacy Act, HIPAA, all of this is sort of a very dynamic environment. I know within the US, we have a lot of conversation happening around data management and around accuracy of data, around um, manipulation and fake news, and who bears that responsibility. So it's a very evolving um, uh, landscape. The digital landscape, if you will. So when all of this is happening, I've found it really interesting, especially in my journey. You need to adapt to all of these changes, regulatory, cyber, data policies, whatnot. And how do you keep all of this in action, right? And still help with the growth of the company. As I mentioned earlier to you, Matt, IT usually has been referred to as a department of no, right? That's kind of has been sort of our role. They are the gatekeepers. No, you cannot download Spotify on your work computer. No, you cannot reuse that password, right? So from that, the digital landscape, the evolution, the growth that's happening has forced IT from a department of no to a department of yes. So we are considered enablers. The C-suite now accepts that, hey, IT is a big piece. Either, well, I shouldn't say that either, but a lot of times now we see IT folks have a seat at the table, voice at the table. Because if there's a ransomware attack, not only are we talking financial loss, but the reputational damage that it does, right? Companies just struggle with trying to come back. CrowdStrike was a great example. The CrowdStrike, though it wasn't a ransomware attack, but it kind of that reputation that you have, it just impacts how do you come out of it. So the C-suite now understands that IT is an important piece. They are the enabler. So how do we have that mindset of being agile and adapting to changing technologies, but at the same time, as you adapt, as you deploy these new technologies, how do you manage security? How do you enable that you have the right guardrails, swim in your lane, and not just go chaos, just complete chaos. Yeah, you asked for this, here you go. So that is an interesting challenge, almost like a line in the sand. And the goalpost keeps moving as technology changes, as cyber attacks get more sophisticated. And it is our responsibility as leaders to constantly be aware of the growth in technology, but at the same time be good stewards of your resources that you're allocated with, be it budgets or personnel. How can you best come up with a strategy, a plan that can achieve the business outcomes.
Well, I mean, it makes me wonder. I mean, as you look at, small businesses, you were there. So I think this is going to be really good and helpful for a lot of people. You were there when the company was still small and not, an ISO, standards company, right? And so being that small agile company, and I think a lot of people think, and correct me if I'm wrong in this kind of thinking, but I think that we generally equate small businesses with agility, being able to change things very quickly. But then how do you marry that successfully with these, like being ISO standard, kind of certified, where now things are heavily documented and, with policies and procedures, and it's all, how do you actually implement that agility when there is so much structure in there? Or is there some way of putting that in there? How do you do that?
Yeah, no, great question, Matt. So I would almost say the intersection of agility and compliance or risk management, if you will, right? So I feel that they are deeply interconnected, with each enhancing the effectiveness of the other. So let me expand a little bit on
Okay.
that. So strategic agility allows organizations to respond quickly, effectively to changing circumstances, while the risk management, the compliance parameters, they ensure that your responses that you're deploying, they're well informed and they mitigate potential downsides. So something that comes to mind is the VUCA terminology, VUCA, right? VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, C is complexity, and A stands for ambiguity. Yeah, I believe this terminology was coined somewhere in 2001 after the 9/11 attacks. The military planners uh, were worried about that radically different and unfamiliar international security environment that had emerged, right? So, man, it's changing all the time. This is unprecedented. So they coined the VUCA terminology. So we always use that sort of a framework, if you will. So volatility, right? Counter volatility with vision. What do I mean by that? Accept and embrace change as a constant. Change is going to happen. That's the only thing that's constant. Don't resist it, right? Create that strong, compelling statements of team objectives, of values, develop a very clear and shared vision of the future. Make sure that as you set these goals, they are flexible. It cannot be like, hey, this is it and this is it, because that's not going to work. You have to have flexibility that you can amend. Understanding, uncertainty. So the next in VUCA is uncertainty. So meet uncertainty with understanding. And what we say is pause to listen and look around, right? This can help you understand and develop new ways of thinking and acting in response to these elements. So review, evaluate your performance. Kind of go back, consider, hey, what you did well, what came as a surprise, what really fell flat, and what could you do different next time, right? To understand that evolving nature. So do it, pause, go back in your sandbox environment and do tabletop exercises, whatever it is, fire drills. Um, so that's the uncertainty. Complexity. Wow. I mean, talk about complexity, the solutions that you have at your fingertips, SaaS solutions. I mean, I probably have every single week, I've got 2 or 3 demos of new providers, new solutions that are relevant to our industry that I sit on. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. This is great technology. And how do you bring it all together? Because that's another solution you got to integrate with your ERPs or whatever solutions it needs to be integrated with. So I would say react to complexity with clarity. you've got to be clear. You've got to communicate clearly so that there is no confusion about what your team's or your organization's direction is. Because if you do not have that clarity, then there's a lot of assumptions, right? So it's like, oh, I thought we are going to do it this way. No, you've got to react to complexity with clarity. Now, develop teams, promote collaboration. We are big on collaboration, like succession planning or cross-departmental training, and especially true for mid-sized organizations. Uh, you know, the situations these days are often too complicated for one person to handle. So build those teams that can work effectively in a fast-paced, unpredictable environment. And lastly, ambiguity. Um, I'd say, fight ambiguity with agility. Promote flexibility, adaptability, plan ahead, build those disaster recovery plans, the backups, plan ahead um, as the events unfold. Have a great incident response plan. Hire, develop, promote people who thrive in these kind of VUCA environments, and that's critical for us, especially in the oil and gas industries. If there's any geopolitical situation happening, that immediately impacts our clients, which then impacts us. So we've got to almost kind of be on that edge, trying to say, okay, yes, this project might get delayed because of this, or we might have issues getting access to this region, so on and so forth, right? So another thing I want to add is train, encourage, motivate your people to think outside of their usual functional areas. We've seen this, and this kind of bleeds a little bit into the diversity piece of it, where we bring in outside folks who facilitate our planning sessions, our Q2 analysis, because a lot of times what happens is if you have that internal team, we are so familiar with our environment and we have these blind spots. So somebody coming in from the outside listens in, and then they bring some institutional knowledge, or somebody that they have seen other companies. Hey, they were talking about this. They bring that visibility to those conversations, which was like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. Like pandemic, who thought that would be a thing? Yes, we kind of planned very vaguely around it, but something like that, absolutely not, right? Um, Lead your team, your teams as a leader. I always encourage my peers, do not dictate or control, and have that attitude. Be a collaborator. We have we bring in interns. We work with a company called Genesis Works, and we bring in interns every year. So actually, this is our first year to bring them in, but we have a mentorship program. What one of the things that we've always seen is you end up learning a few things, even from these high school kids who come in. It's like, oh yeah, right, because they are very familiar with social media. And we always come up with, oh, I did not know that. Yeah, that's a thing that was a gap for us or a blind spot. Yes, we want to have presence on social media, and what's the best way to do it? So you always demonstrate that level of understanding, adaptability, and promote that growth internally. I think that kind of is how I feel we at Mesa have transitioned, using this framework, if you will, to grow from that mid-size to now from a small to a mid-sized company. And as we continue to add on more people, um, this has been a great framework, sort of a reference point for us. Okay, these are the situations we're going to encounter, and how do we do that? All right, we've got these guidelines, and that's going to keep us in check.
That's awesome. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think I really love the idea that you can learn something from everybody. It doesn't matter, where they stand in the hierarchy, in the company, the age, you name it. And I think you nailed it with the interns. I think it's such a valuable perspective to have. And far too often, especially kind of in the kind of that military mindset, there's not a lot of learning from below. And I think it's really critical to be open to learning stuff from everybody. It doesn't just come from the leadership team, but it can come from strange and unusual places. So I think that's brilliant and well done.
Thank you.
I did want to ask you, for as people look to kind of do likewise and get those kind of ISO certification. Let's say you got another kind of CIO, or IT manager who's looking to help their company become more compliant, and they're looking to get ISO standard, or certified, or NIST certified, whatever it might be. Kind of having gone down that path, been clearly very successful with it. What kind of advice would you give to somebody going into it now?
Yeah. So it has to be driven from the top, right? So that's the one thing about frameworks and certifications, uh, because if the leadership, the senior leadership, if the ownership is not 100% committed to it, and what I mean by commitment is not just the talk, but the walk. You've got to stand behind it. You've got to roll up your sleeves and get it, get your hands dirty. Um, so um, you have to strongly believe in it. And I would say if you are looking to go on this journey, it is not for the faint at heart because when I was introduced to it, it was a foreign concept. The very first Malcolm Baldrige application that I was part of, I'm reading the questionnaire, Matthew, and I'm like, wow, that's what do they mean by that? They're so wordy and it's like, and you answer that question and you go to the next question and you look at it as like, well, that I just answered that question. And but if once you start addressing each of your individual departments or processes, you start to see the difference. So the devil is in the details. So for anybody who's trying to go on this journey, you need that right mindset, because as you go along, you'll see a lot of pushback, because your mid management and especially the executors, for them they are focused on getting the job done, executing, and move on to the next task, right? So for them, you have to herd that entire mentality and create that culture of continuous improvement. um, I would say reading helps a lot. Going to some conferences, joining boards, joining a like-minded group of folks. And Matt, you've got a great thing going on through this podcast series. I think you can sponge off of many of the thought leadership episodes you might have, and it's just not, hey, there's this category book, I'm going to read that and move on. No, it is a journey. Uh, and speaking to other companies like minded or maybe different industries but similar size, and what their journey has been. In fact, one of our key um, uh, features over at Mesa is we like to share our best practices. We get invited to other companies to talk about how do we do this, how do we promote internally, what's the succession plan look like, how do you strategically plan for the next 5 years, right? 5 years, I mean, back in the day, you used to plan for 5, 10, 15, right? And now it's like, well, 5 years, that's too far. Let's plan for the next quarter or next two
Yeah.
quarters, right? So again, that comes back to that agility. So I would say join boards, do a lot of reading, just kind of keep yourself aware of the changing trends, technologies, and continue to learn.
That's That's fantastic advice. And I couldn't think of a better place to wrap this up, because I think you and I could do this all day. This has been absolutely fantastic. But before we go, Faraz, can you tell everybody where they can find out more about you and about Mesa?
Yeah, so you guys could look us up. We are one-mesa.com is our corporate. So it's one-mesa.com is our corporate. And then underneath there, you'll find our 3 different divisions. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So look me up, Sarfraz Shaikh. And I'd love to engage in further conversations and help in any way I can.
I love it. Well, Sarfraz, thanks so much for coming on today. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Love it. Thank you for the opportunity, Matt.
Pleasure. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.